So today's video is about finding the circumference and the area of a circle. So let's start with looking at the parts of a circle. So the first part of a circle that we want to focus on is called the diameter. The diameter is a line that touches both sides of the circle and crosses through the center of the circle. So it's this line here. And basically what the diameter does is it splits the circle in half. It splits it into two parts. The next part of a circle we want to talk about is called the radius. The radius is a line that goes from the center of a circle and it only touches one side of a circle. Now, one thing that you do need to know about the diameter is twice the size of the radius. So let's say, for example, you had a diameter that was 20 inches. Well, then the radius would be 10 inches. Which means if the diameter is twice the size of the radius, that means that the radius is half the size of the diameter. So if I told you that the radius was 7, then that means the diameter would be 14. So what is circumference? Circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle. So circumference is just like perimeter. The only difference is that perimeter is used for polygons, which are like triangles and squares and rectangles. Circumference is specifically for a circle, but it is the same concept. It's the distance around the outside of the shape. So what is pi? Pi is circle's magic number, and when you guys were doing the investigation earlier, you figured out that if you take the diameter, it would actually take you 3 of those diameters and a little bit more to get all the way around the circle, and that's where this magic number comes from. And it doesn't matter how big or how small the circle is, you still end up with this number 3.14. So pi is called circle's magic number. It is the rounded version because pi is actually a really long number. So when we're doing math, when we're doing the area and the circumference and we're using pi, we're simply going to use 3.14 for pi. So whenever you are asked to calculate something and use pi to calculate, you're going to replace pi with 3.14. So how do you find the circumference of a circle? Well, to find circumference, you have to follow one of these two formulas. The first formula is that the first formula for circumference is pi times the diameter. The second formula is 2 times pi times the radius. So it really just depends on what part of the circle they gave you. If they give you the diameter, then you simply want to do diameter times the pi. Or if they give you the radius, then you want to do 2 times pi times the radius. So let's look at some examples. This first example, we're asked to find the circumference of this circle. So the first thing we want to look at is what part of the circle did they give us. So if we look at the picture, they gave us the diameter. They gave us the line that goes all the way across. And they told us that the diameter is 12 centimeters. So that means I want to use that first formula, pi times diameter. Now remember, pi is circle's magic number, and whenever you see pi, you're going to replace pi with the number 3.14. So we're going to do that here. We're going to replace pi with 3.14. And then the diameter, they gave us the length of the diameter as 12. So we're going to replace the diameter with 12. So to find the circumference, we're going to do 3.14 times 12, which gives us a circumference of 37 and 6/800 centimeters. That means the distance around the outside of this circle is 37 and 6/800 centimeters. So this next example, we're asked again to find the circumference of this circle. We want to look at what part of the circle did they give us. They gave us, in this example, they only gave us the radius. And we know we have the radius because the line only goes halfway across. Well, they told us that the length of this radius is 8 inches. So now because they gave us the radius, we want to actually use the other formula, which is 2 times pi times the radius. So again, whenever we see pi, you're going to replace pi with 3.14. And then they gave us the length of the radius, so we're going to replace the radius with 8. So to find the circumference, we're going to do 2 times 3.14 times 8, which gives us a circumference of 50 and 2400 inches. So that means the distance around the outside of this circle is 50 and 2400 inches. Now, what is the area of a circle? Well, the area of a circle is just like the area of any other shape. It's the space inside of the shape. So how do you find the area of a circle? So remember, we talked about how every shape has its own unique area formulas. So now what I'm giving you are the formulas that go with a circle. So the formula to find the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared, or pi times the radius to the second power. And another way we can write that is pi times the radius times the radius. So let's find the area of this circle. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at what part of the circle did they give us. That's very important. So if I look at this picture, they've given me the radius. So that means all I have to do is plug in 15 for the radius. So I'm going to start with my formula. My formula is pi times the radius, which means I have to plug in 3.14 for pi and 15 for the radius. So I'm going to do 3.14 times 15 times 15, which gives me a total area of 706 and 5/10 meters squared. Now in this example, they say find the area of a circle with a diameter of 19 millimeters. So they didn't give us a picture, but they told us that our circle has a diameter of 19 millimeters. So if we look at the formula is pi times the radius, but they didn't give us the radius, they gave us the diameter. But we can use the diameter to find the radius because we can only use the radius in the formula. So what we can do is we can actually take the diameter and cut it in half, because if you remember, the radius is half the size of the diameter. So if I take this diameter, which is 19, and I divide it by 2, that's going to give me what the radius of the circle is. So that means the radius will be 9.5. So that means when I am plugging in my numbers into my formula, I want to make sure that I don't plug the 19 in for the radius, because that's not the radius, that's the diameter. I want to plug in the 9.5 because that's the radius of the circle. So to find the area, I'm going to do 3.14 times 9.5 times 9.5, which gives me a total area of 283.385 millimeters squared. So some important things to remember about circles is, one, you want to remember circle's magic number. You want to remember pi, and pi is 3.14. The other thing you want to remember is that circumference is the same as perimeter. It's the distance around the outside of the shape. And then you want to remember the formulas. For circumference, you can do pi times the diameter, or you can do 2 times pi times the radius. And if you're trying to find the area of a circle, you would do pi times the radius to the second power, or you can just write it as pi times the radius times the radius.